Have you ever wondered, does happiness in old age come from doing more or from letting go? We're often told that the older we get, the more we need to stay busy, active, and useful. But sometimes the very things we try hardest to hold on to are what exhaust us the most. True happiness, perhaps, doesn't come from adding more, but from having the courage to release what no longer serves us. In today's video, Elderly Wisdom Stories invites you on a quiet yet profound journey. 8 things you should stop worrying about after 70 so the years ahead can be lived with more freedom, peace, and joy. Each section will bring you a real story from those who've already lived through half a lifetime and discovered that living lightly is the only way to live deeply. And if you stay until the end, you may come to see this. Some things we carry feel like habits, but are invisible burdens. And the moment you dare to lay them down, life ahead may open up like a deep breath, light, unburdened, and finally your own. To begin living with greater ease and happiness after 70, the first thing to let go of is the obsession with how others see you. Evelyn, now 71, had spent most of her younger years living to meet the expectations of those around her. Every word she spoke, every choice she made was carefully weighed, always to please others, of being liked, of being accepted. But after decades of living this way, the weight of it began to wear her down. She came to realize that no matter how hard she tried, she could never please everyone. There would always be someone who misunderstood her, someone who judged her, someone who turned away, often for reasons that had nothing to do with her at all. And then, in one quiet moment of awakening, Evelyn saw it clearly. Happiness doesn't come from being approved of. It comes from having the courage to be real. The day she let go of worrying what others thought was the day she felt free, truly free, for the first time in decades. She started dressing the way she liked, joined a folk dance class she once felt too self-conscious to attend, and began sharing her opinions without apologizing for them. Because freedom doesn't come from pleasing others. It comes from the courage to be yourself. And for Evelyn, that journey began with one simple but powerful decision: to stop letting others define her worth. After Evelyn reclaimed her inner freedom by letting go of others' opinions, another quiet lesson that aging often whispers to us is this: not every truth needs to be proven. Martin, now 75, was once known for being an excellent debater. Whether within his family or at community meetings, he was always the one with sharp arguments, quick rebuttals, and an unshakable stance when he believed he was right. But over the years, something in him began to shift. After every time he won an argument, he found himself unable to sleep, lost in thought, and feeling empty rather than relieved. And then, one day, sitting alone after a tense debate, he asked himself, does being right still matter if I no longer feel at peace? That question awakened something in him. Martin gradually realized that many arguments don't bring about change. They only bring exhaustion. Not everyone wants to hear reason, and not everyone is ready to change their perspective, even when they know they're wrong. From then on, he began choosing silence in situations that didn't truly need his voice. He learned to smile and say, I understand your point, instead of launching into another battle of words. And what he gained wasn't defeat. It was peace. Sometimes a nod and a step back are the greatest victories. Victories over the ego in exchange for the quiet calm of the soul. After letting go of the need to be right in every conversation like Martin did, another lesson that aging slowly and gently teaches us is this: no one can live someone else's life. Nora, now 73, was once the very definition of a burden bearer in her family. Whenever her children faced problems, her grandchildren struggled, or relatives fell into conflict, she was always the one to step in, mediating, advising, even carrying the emotional load for others. At first, it made her feel useful, but over time, she began to feel drained. There were moments when those she gave her all to would turn around and blame her when things didn't go their way. The breaking point came when she fainted from a sudden spike in blood pressure while trying to resolve an argument between her 2 grandchildren. The doctor, with calm sincerity, simply said, "You're not here to fix the world's problems." That one sentence woke her up from a role she had played for far too long. From then on, Nora began to step back. not because she stopped caring, but because she chose a different way to love, listening without absorbing, being present without controlling, supporting without replacing. She came to understand this. Everyone must learn through their own stumbles, must discover their own lessons. And sometimes, the best thing an older person can do is simply to stand at a distance, close enough to protect, but far enough to honor the other's journey. After learning to love without carrying the weight of others, many people begin turning inward and finally face something that many older adults still quietly carry: the burden of perfection. Charles, now 76, had always been meticulous, disciplined, and hard on himself. He strived to do the right thing, to live appropriately, to never disappoint anyone. But after all those years, what he felt wasn't peace, but a heavy weight, because deep down, he still held on to things he wished he had done better, mistakes he couldn't erase. Then one afternoon, while sorting through an old box of photographs, he came across a faded picture of his family, a moment from years ago when he had said something hurtful to his son. Looking at it now, he smiled, not with guilt, but with the gentleness of someone who had come to understand. No one goes through life without making mistakes. From that moment on, Charles began to see his life through different eyes. Instead of blaming himself, he chose gratitude. Gratitude even for the missteps, because they helped him grow. Gratitude even for the imperfect decisions, because they taught him compassion. And he came to a profound realization: peace doesn't come from perfection. It comes from having the courage to accept our flaws as an essential part of the journey. No one needs to be flawless to be happy, only honest enough to face themselves and gentle enough to forgive what has already passed. After Charles let go of the pressure to be perfect and learned to look at the past with gratitude, many others began to notice something seemingly small, yet deeply influential on their daily well-being: the physical things we hold on to in our living spaces. Lucille, now 78, had been living alone in a 2-story house ever since her husband passed away. Every room was filled to the brim: old clothes, chipped teacups, even broken clocks that no longer ticked but were carefully stored away because they held memories. At first glance, the house seemed warm and comforting, but inside she carried a heaviness she couldn't quite name. One winter morning, after waking with a lingering ache in her back, she decided to start small. Just one drawer. She picked up each item gently, recalled the memories, whispered a quiet goodbye, then set it aside, to store away, to give away, or to let go entirely. And then something unexpected happened. The house began to feel larger. The air seemed lighter, the sunlight felt brighter, and Lucille's heart, bit by bit, felt freer. She came to realize possessions don't preserve the past. Sometimes we just use them as an excuse, a way to delay releasing what we're not quite ready to let go of. Letting go of a single object also meant letting go of a lingering attachment. And as space returned to her home, space also opened within her life, not with grand changes, but through a quiet sense of ease, of lightness in every breath, in every corner of her home and of her soul. After letting go of excess possessions to make room for light and a new way of living, many people come to realize something deeper. It's not just the home that needs clearing. Relationships and expectations also need to be reevaluated. And one of the hardest things to let go of is the need to please everyone. Henry, now 74, had long been known among friends and family as the easygoing one. He was always willing to help, always said yes when someone asked for a favor, and always smiled, even when he was running on empty. At first, it made him feel loved, but slowly he began to feel as though he was living for others and no longer for himself. One day, after straining his back while helping with an event he hadn't truly wanted to attend, Henry sat down and asked himself, "Why am I doing something I don't want to do just to make someone else happy?" That question changed everything. From that day on, he began practicing the art of saying no. He declined invitations that drained him, turned down tasks that exceeded his capacity, And most importantly, he stopped apologizing for prioritizing his own health and emotional well-being. What surprised him most was this: the people who truly cared for him didn't grow distant. They respected him more. And those who became upset because he no longer fulfilled their every request turned out not to be the ones worth keeping close. For Henry, freedom didn't begin with being liked by many. It began the moment he chose to live truthfully, to say no without guilt, and to finally choose himself. After rediscovering freedom in the power of saying no and learning to put themselves ahead of others' expectations, a new door opens for many older adults. A door that leads to a different rhythm of life, slower but deeper. Marjorie, now 70, was once someone who didn't know how to sit still. Throughout her career, she chased deadlines, schedules, and responsibilities. Even in retirement, she remained busy, planning trips to the market, coordinating community gatherings, and visiting her children and grandchildren. It seemed as though she didn't know how to exist without that constant pace. Until one afternoon, weary and resting by her window, she suddenly noticed the golden light of the setting sun falling gently across her porch, the song of birds high on the tree branches, and the soft breeze brushing through her silver hair. That moment startled her. How long had it been since she truly looked, truly listened, and truly felt? From that day forward, Marjorie began practicing a slower way of living. She walked more slowly, not counting steps, but letting her heart drift freely with the wind. She ate more slowly, chewing mindfully and tasting each flavor more clearly. She brewed tea and drank it alone, not out of sadness, but because she cherished the quiet. And within that slowness, life became more vivid. No longer just a blur of busy days, but a series of meaningful moments. She stopped chasing time and began savoring it like one might savor a gentle melody after a long day. For Marjorie, slow living was not about slowing down because she was tired, but about choosing to live with depth, with care, and with truth. One final lesson, no less important than the rest, brings the spiritual journey of aging to a gentle close, learning to stop overthinking the future and to trust in oneself. Raymond, now 79, used to suffer from endless sleepless nights haunted by questions with no clear answers. What if I get sick tomorrow? What if my retirement fund runs out? What if I become a burden to my children? Every night, these thoughts circled endlessly, stealing what little peace he still held. But then, one morning, as he sat alone on the porch, watching the first light of day fall softly across his old wooden chair, a quiet memory surfaced. He had already endured so much. He had faced illness, loss, loneliness, and yet he had survived. He had lived through the death of loved ones, battled through relapses of sickness, weathered storms of uncertainty that once felt insurmountable. And still he was here, breathing, awake, alive. From that moment, something shifted. Whenever word returned, he would take a deep breath, touch the present with his hands, and whisper to himself, "Life has carried me through so much already. It will carry me through what comes next." He began to give thanks for a sunny day, for a simple meal, for a surprise phone call from a faraway grandchild, and he came to realize worry has never stopped a bad thing from happening. It has only stopped us from fully living today. For Raymond, living wasn't about predicting the future. It was about trusting the strength he had already proven over a lifetime. And from that point on, each passing day no longer felt like a weight, but a gift, slowly unwrapped with faith and gratitude. When you dare to let go, life dares to be gentler with you. Growing older doesn't require more to feel complete. Sometimes all it takes is worrying less, trying less, and caring less about what doesn't truly matter. And that alone is enough to bring calm to the mind and peace to the heart. You don't need to always be right. You don't need to hold on to every relationship. You don't need to please the entire world. And you certainly don't need to worry about things that haven't yet happened. You just need to be yourself, gently, deeply, and fully. If you feel you're already on that path, or if you're just beginning to lay down the old and start a new chapter, share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story may be the gentle reminder that someone else out there is waiting for. And if you'd like to continue walking with us on this journey of living kindly, living with understanding, and living in peace after 60, don't forget to subscribe to Elderly Wisdom Stories, turn on notifications, and leave a like if this video touched your heart. There is still so much beauty ahead. All you need is a light heart to keep moving forward.